Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 1st of March 2023, and the following will be discussed in detail in the course of the show. We will begin with all the atrocities that are being committed by the Indian forces in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley. If we just look at the month of February, 5 total killings, 2 custodial killings, 115 civilians arrested, and one woman widowed, while 3 children have been orphaned. This brings to the total number of killings since January 89 to the 28th of February 2023 to 96,180. This and more will be discussed in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Israeli atrocities on Palestinians. As far as the latest information goes, dozens of Palestinian homes and cars were set on fire in Huwara, town in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. This appears to be one of the worst outbursts of settler violence in decades. Will this ever end? Will the world bodies reunite or unite to help the Palestinians and to carve out a solution, whether it be in the form of a two-state solution or any other form of solution, but a solution nevertheless? This is going to be our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the death toll from collision of 2 trains in central Greece, which is rising as we speak. A very unfortunate incident that happened in Greece, and we'll be talking about that in detail. Then we'll be talking about the next general elections that will be held in constituencies based on a new digital census, which has begun in fact today across the country, will end on the 1st of April. The people will be going door to door in order to collect information, and everything is going to be digitized. Our next story will be, of course, India that has imposed the highest number of internet shutdowns globally in the year 2022. This is a new report that has revealed this number. Critics say this is another blow to freedom of speech and expression in India. We already knew that, but this is another report that consolidates what we have been saying all along. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns India illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the brutalities that continue on the hapless people in the held valley, whether it be in the form of custodial killings in general, or putting people under jail, or pressure on different Kashmiri leaders. More in the following report.
Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has been under an unprecedented lockdown, military siege and communication blackout since August 2019, with the BJP government's revocation of the Article 370, which took away Kashmir's special status as provided in the Indian constitution. Despite adversity and atrocities unleashed by Indian security forces, the valiant people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir have stood firm in their resolve for their legitimate right of self-determination. Indian troops in their unabated acts of state terrorism martyred 5 innocent Kashmiris in the last month of February. As many as 115 youth were arrested, while 7 people were injured due to the use of brute force by Indian police on peaceful protesters during 193 cordon and search operations during the month. Apart from massive human rights violation by Indian security forces, the occupied valley is in state of constant siege and surveillance, while Indian forces and RSS militants are free to kill, torture and arrest any innocent Kashmiri. The Kashmiri leadership has been illegally imprisoned under draconian laws like the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The international community cannot ignore the ongoing human rights abuses in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the Indian government must be held accountable for its actions.
More in detail this burning issue that has been burning since some decades. We are joined by Sundas Malik. She is the chairperson of United Jammu and Kashmir Coalition. Thank you very much, Sundas Malik, to have joined us. Sundas Malik, the brutalities, the barbarities on the people in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir continue unabated. I just talked a little bit about the figures since January 1989 to the 28th of February this year. 96,180 total killings. This is a staggering amount without any formal pressure on India. Is this going to continue?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. The unfortunate bit about the whole Kashmir conflict is that Indian government's duplicity can only be matched by the world at large and its complicity in what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir. Until and unless proactive and tangible steps are taken under the international law, I fail to understand how one thinks that the Kashmir issue will be resolved. India, who is a signatory to the International Covenant on Human and Political Rights, continues to violate those rights when it comes to the citizens of Kashmir without the world at large batting an eye. Because what it, I think, sees in India is a room for investment rather than a room for the implementing of human rights and rights of prisoners. As you mentioned in your report, more than 4,000 Hurriyat members are under Indian government's custody. And whether it be the courts, whether it be the police, whether it be the army, who is known as experts in fake encounters, uh, they're all complicit in what the Indian government is doing in Kashmir, which is basically genocide. It has been called genocide by Genocide Watch. It has been noted all over the world. But until and unless actions lead the conversation, I don't think that this will stop, and unfortunately, will continue to happen in Kashmir.
You know, in all of this mocking of the all kinds of human rights agreements that India is signatory to, as you have yourself pointed out, how is all of this policy of violence, this policy of brutality, this policy of mocking all human rights agreements shaping the security landscape of the Indian held valley?
Well, the security landscape, of course, is now shaping up to be like the Nazi Germany or the occupied Palestine. It is an apartheid state. And as we see from the news that's coming out of the Kashmir Valley, civil militias have been empowered to assist and abate the Indian forces, the occupational forces, in further derogation of human rights and human life in the Kashmir Valley. So I think the backlash, I think, is only to come uh, when you call freedom fighters or fighters against the occupation of Kashmir militants and terrorists. I don't think it's shaping up to be anything for good. It is shaping up to be a huge clash once again. And India, without realizing that this issue now is being monitored not just by Pakistan, it is being monitored by China, it is being monitored by the rest of the world, and some parties will take action. They're not right like the rest of the world. So I think the Indian government also needs to realize that this brutality can only lead to violence within their country, not just in Kashmir Valley.
Sundas, I'd also like to understand, post the 5th of August 2019, the legislative decisions that have been taken, the decisions as far as revision of the voter list also that has been put into place, how is that going to bode for a coming of the BJP into the IIOJK region in power is concerned, and how is that going to affect the region? What are going to be the implications for the Kashmiris that have been residing there for decades?
Well, the implications for Kashmiris is a total and utter dismissal of their rights in the valley that they belong to, in the valley that belongs to them. BJP is an outside interferer, not just in their political rights. They know for a fact that the voter turnout in the last election was, sorry to say, more than disappointing, because the Kashmiri people understand that they have no representatives who represent their true rights in the Kashmir Valley, being part of the mainstream politics. As far as BJP is concerned, they can bring in outliners that they have admitted into the voter registration through the demographic change and through the abrogation of Article 350 and through the Domiciles Act. But as long as the people of Kashmir, the indigenous citizens of Kashmir, are not given the rights that they deserve, it is going to be another mockery that India presents to the world, another facade that India presents to the world, and nothing to do with the real situation that is going on in the Kashmir Valley. So it is going to be difficult for the people of Kashmir to survive.
In all of this facade that you've just enumerated, we'll be discussing in detail the different elements of this facade, but the United Nations resolutions, let's talk about those as well. 11 resolutions on the Indian held Jammu and Kashmir Valley. There is a contravention of UNSC resolution 38, whose para 2 states that neither party to the dispute can bring about a material change in the situation in Kashmir. A blatant violation of the United Nations resolutions has taken place, and nobody is saying anything. Nobody is exerting pressure on India. I understand the economic implications. I understand the relationship that certain countries in the West have with India, but can't this work in parallel with also exerting pressure so that they can maintain their human rights?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the world at large is as complicit in what is going on in the Kashmir Valley as in the Indian government itself, because they are not just innocent bystanders, they are silent bystanders who know the law, who know what is happening in the Kashmir Valley, and they know that they have the ability and the means to act and be interferers in a positive way. But what they lack, I think, is the intention, because as we have seen in the past, we have seen that the same world that was allowing the people of Ukraine to fight for themselves marks us as terrorists when we try and have our UN granted right of fighting for our self determination. But I think the world at large needs to understand that this is not just going to end in the Kashmir Valley. What India is doing is not going to end in the Kashmir Valley. It is spreading all over India. There are 17 different independent movements currently being pursued in India itself. So I think any interest that they might have, whether that be economical or whether that be an alliance, it all fails when India fails as a state to provide protections to its own citizens. So I think the United Nations of all the people needs to understand that their covenants are being broken by India, a state which is, they call it the world's largest democracy. So when world's largest democracy is complicit in blatant and I would say unabated human rights violations, then no one can expect any sort of civil behavior from the rest of the world, especially the citizens of India themselves, who might turn towards self-protection if the world chooses to stay silent.
All right. So, this also I'd like to understand, the report of the Delimitation Commission of 2022 to carve out new constituencies to change the whole demography of the region from a Muslim majority into a Muslim minority area. How much of a success has the Indian government had to date? What is the update as far as that report is concerned, and how much have they been successful to turn the Kashmiri Muslim majority into a minority? Has there been some updates that you could share with us?
Well, of course, resistance has been forthcoming from the valley itself against this delimitation commission. But when we say if Indian government has had a success in carving out this piece of land as a Hindu majority, then the world's silence, of course, has had a successful result for the Indian government, because this delimitation has not only carved out areas which are Hindu majority, and they understand that the BJP candidates will have success there rather than their own representatives, but they also know that the registration of more than 1 million voters, which are non-indigenous Kashmiris, has in effect completely erased the identity of a Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir. And worse is to come. It is not. I don't think without intervention it is going to get any better for us.
What about the domicile certificates that were issued? Around 3.4 million so-called domicile certificates that were issued to non-residents of Kashmir. Even rights were given to those soldiers who have been working in the Indian-held valley. The Chief Election Commissioner's decision in July 2022 granting voting rights to any Indian citizen. Can that law be changed at any time, or do you feel this law is here to stay?
Well, like I said, unfortunately, without intervention from the world at large, this law cannot be reversed. without resistance from within India, this law cannot be reversed. Rahul Gandhi recently had his Bharat Jodo Yatra, but I think when it came to Kashmir, we could see the lack of connection between the people of India and the people of Kashmir itself. So the indigenous government, the indigenous people and the non-indigenous government will continue to have a rift between them, a deficit of trust and a deficit of policy when it concerns the indigenous people. So I think it needs to be understood that Kashmir issue will not be resolved until and unless the world at large intervenes immediately and with proactive actions, whether that be sanctions, whether that be interference on basis of responsibility to protect. We need to interfere, otherwise we'll be talking about Kashmir in the next 50 years like we talk about Nazi Germany.
We talked about Rahul Gandhi, Sundas Malik. The fact remains that you talked about his movement also that is going on in India as we speak. But there is a very pertinent question here. When it comes to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, how much of a policy change does the BJP have with the Congress?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to Kashmir, the policy has remained quite similar between Congress and the BJP. Although it might not have been that outrightly Hindutva policy, but Kashmiri rights have been always on the back burner for the Indian government, whether that was the Congress government or whether that was the BJP government. Musarrat Alam Bhatt, Yassin Malik, Asian Rabi, Qasim Faktu, all these people have been in custody all the while the Congress government was in party. Sayyid Ali Gilani was kept in custody while the Congress government was in power. So I think the Congress government is well equipped in acting as they accept the Kashmiris, whereas the BJP government outright rejects us, our religion, and our right of being part of the Kashmir Valley.
In all of this, the work, the resistance by the Kashmiris needs to be talked about as well, Sundas Malik. As I pointed out, you pointed out as well, over 4,000 Hurriyat leaders are being victimized for siding with their region, the region that they have been part of and living in, and for the rights of the people, the genuine rights of the people of that region. How much success do you feel their movement, to whichever extent they have gone, has had, whether it be nationally, whether it be internationally? Has there been any reaction coming from different corners of the world from what they have been doing over the years?
Well, I think their sacrifice has kept the Kashmir resistance alive. It has kept the sentiment of resistance within Kashmiris, such as myself, alive. And it is very hard to kill. The second most important thing that their resistance efforts have done is make it clear to the rest of the world that no matter what India pretends to say, the international community understands Kashmir as a conflicted zone, as a zone which is occupied, and as a zone where declaring your allegiance with India is not an issue. But at the same time, when it comes to Pakistan and India, when we choose Pakistan, we become militants and we become terrorists.
That is so true. But the fact also is that Pakistan has been siding with their Kashmiri brethren politically, morally and diplomatically. How much of that has had an effect on the world bodies, on the international organizations? Because on every single forum, Pakistan has been highlighting the Kashmir cause.
Well, I think Pakistan is the only country which has stood by the people of Kashmir without any interest. I always say that Pakistan has stood by the people of Kashmir without any self-interest. It has stood by the people of Kashmir for the same reason the people of Kashmir have stood by Pakistan, and that is our identity as Muslims. And Pakistan has made any and every effort that was required, but when it comes to the resolution of Kashmir, we have to understand that Pakistan itself cannot be the only party who is interested in resolving the Kashmir issue. Kashmiris cannot be the only party who are interested in resolving the Kashmir issue. It is India and its allies who are complicit in the continued occupation of Kashmir who will be held responsible by history and by the facts themselves.
Sundas Malik, also not only are the Indian forces and the Indian government trying to make the Muslim majority into a Muslim minority, they are also trying to erase the Muslim identity of the Kashmir Valley, of the Kashmiris, whether it be through incidents such as harassing people, harassing the Kashmiri leaders, whether it be by seizing the JNK Waqf board and all the properties across the region. Is there any resistance to that? Will such incidents continue without any resistance whatsoever by the authorities that be?
Unfortunately for Kashmiris, resisting such actions is futile. They know that all they'll pay for is with their life, and it will not yield anything for their future. The only thing that it might yield is the death of themselves and their whole family. So, unfortunately, this thing will continue until and unless I think Modi decides to grow a conscience overnight, or the BJP, for that matter, decides to grow a conscience overnight. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, and I don't see the unabashed, torture of the Kashmiri citizens and their lives to end anytime soon.
Sundas Malik, we will continue to stand by our Kashmiri brethren, whatever their cause might be, whatever their struggle might be, as we have been since the last few decades. I just hope that all the struggle that the Kashmiris have been doing since decades for their genuine right to self-determination, the right to decide what they want to do with their region, be given to them. This is a basic human right. There's nothing more to it. They're not asking much. They're just asking for a basic human right. I really hope that all the human rights organizations come together as one and exert pressure on the important world bodies so that this could be done without further delay. Thank you so very much, Sundas Malik, Chairperson, United Jammu and Kashmir Coalition, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the atrocity that continue in the Indian-held valley. We talked about the killings that have just happened in the month of February, and also the killings that have been happening since January 89 to the 28th of February 2023. Our second segment for today also concerns more or less a similar incident that is happening in another part of the world, and that is Palestine, where Israeli settlers have again set dozens of Palestinian homes, cars on fire in Huwara. This is a town in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Such incidents, more incidents, killings and torture is going on in Palestine and by the Israelis since quite some time. Reminds us very much of what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. More in the following report.
A lack of punishment for its actions has encouraged Israel to continue carrying out crimes against humanity in Palestine. Every year, hundreds of attacks have been carried out by Israelis living in illegal settlements against Palestinians and their properties in the occupied West Bank. Israeli settlers have set dozens of Palestinians' homes and cars on fire in Huwara, a town in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus, in the worst outburst of settler violence in decades. Settlers committed shootings, arson attacks, and beat Palestinians with metal rods and rocks, which killed one Palestinian, injured hundreds, according to Palestinian media reports. Several elements of Israel's new far-right administration are fully fledged members of the settler movement, who have variously called for the full annexation of the West Bank. Israeli forces carried out 3 large-scale raids in Palestinian cities since the new government took office, killing dozens of Palestinians. Last year was the bloodiest on record in the West Bank since the Second Intifada. Israel and Palestinian security officials met in Jordan for the first high-level talks in years aimed at calming tensions. A joint communique from the Jordan summit expressing readiness and commitment to work immediately to prevent further violence was not just undermined by the rioting in Huwara, but by members of the Israeli government.
To discuss more on this matter, we've been joined by Ambassador Najam, Saqib, former ambassador and foreign affairs analyst. Thank you very much, Ambassador Najam Saqib, to have joined us. I'd like to begin with this joint statement that was recently made by the Israeli and the Palestinian sides in the Red Sea resort of Aqaba in Jordan, and this happened on Sunday. They had said that they will work together to prevent further violence. I don't see that developing into some kind of consensus, seeing what is happening in Palestine as we speak.
Thank you, Omar. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. 10 by 10, Ambassador Saab.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you
Can
perfectly
you hear me?
well, Ambassador Saab. Yes, Ambassador Saab, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. To begin with, these words rampage and carnage and bombing and killing of Palestinians or Israelis, etc. We have been hearing this for a long time now. The new thing in it, if you ask me what is the new thing in this, is the new aspect is that the United States of America, which is directly involved in this Palestinian issue or Middle East issue, Washington has condemned this killing. First for the Israelis and then for the Palestinians. This is a very, welcoming stance from the United States of America. As far as the other world is concerned, you will be, surprised to know that no statement is issued by China, Russia, or any other European country to see it very closely. What does it mean? It means that this problem, this killing, this recent killing, recent rampage, or the overall issue, the world powers, China, Russia, European Union, etc., they have somehow come to this point that this problem relates to Israel, Palestine, perhaps Egypt and Jordan, and perhaps some of the Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries, and the United States of America. If you ask me why this happened, you already know, you have already stated that. We have seen this, report also, and the international media is also, reporting about this sad incident, which started Sunday night. Two Israelis, were killed as such, and then the rampage started. One important aspect of Palestinian problem or the Middle Eastern issue is that one would never know how many people have killed, number one, how many buildings have been destroyed, number two, who actually started this, number three, and the actual calculation, because last year we saw, the whole West Bank being bombarded by Israeli, jets and missiles and etc. I think the time has come that the United States of America, along with other important members of the United Nations Security Council, particularly the P5, because this kind of rampage, this kind of carnage, this kind of incidents, they keep on happening. There has to be a stop to it. And how to begin with, we have seen, for instance, the last 40, 45 years, there have been so many proposals, Omar, so many proposals on the table, either in Geneva or in New York or in Saudi Arabia or in Norway, Denmark, etc., United States. The world powers agree on certain kind of formula. Somehow, when the implementation, point comes, something happens.
That is true, Ambassador Saab. There is always something that happens whenever some kind of a solution is being put forward by the important world bodies. The two-state solution that is in place since quite some time has been discussed, has been accepted, is not being put into place. There's some kind of an issue that crops up that puts this on the sideline. Do you also feel that this settler violence in the Palestinian villages that happened recently was to undermine this Jordan summit?
Of course, that is that is an obvious deduction that you and I can make, very easily. Coincidentally, this conference that you are talking about, or any peaceful, as far as the this Palestinian problem is concerned, the normal thing is not that there is a peace in Middle East. There are no killings, no rampage, etc. The normal thing is that how less the intensity of the war between the Palestinian people and the Israeli people are. So to me, this is not as big as it was, last year. Obviously, there would be some kind of impetus, reasons for this. Now, who was that Palestinian who actually started this fighting? The investigation should start from here. And I can assure you, basing my experience, that you will hear all these stories, a week will pass, 2 weeks will pass, and we would never know whether it was a Palestinian who started this or it was started just like that. So we
Ambassador
are
Saab,
just
let's
expecting.
talk about some facts and figures. Let's talk about the arrests that are made after any such incident that happens in the past. Let's talk about this Sunday night rampage by Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank. If you look at the number of convictions once people are arrested after any such incident happens, only 3% of investigations into attacks against the Palestinians result in any form of conviction. 93% of investigations close without any form of indictment, and this is according to an Israeli rights group. What further can we say?
That is the point. You are actually saying what I just said. That either there will be no investigation. If at all there is an investigation, you will see that more than 97, 98% there would be no result. And though that 3 or 2% result that come to us, those are debatable. Who conducted those investigations? And, both parties, were they, available at that time to record their, evidence or witnesses? So this stalemate continues. The irony is that the world powers, I'm not speaking about the Middle Eastern Muslim countries, the world powers are watching this time and again, and it has been decades. There have been resolutions of the Security Council. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, you and I know that OIC, for instance, was formed actually to work for the Palestinian cause. You also know, I know, and millions of your viewers know that Pakistan has still not recognized Israel just because Pakistan wants a two-state solution, which is not in the offing, which they don't, agree. Now, in such kind of a stalemate, the United Nations is the best forum to decide about it. It has been decided so many times. There are so many resolutions, just like Kashmir. There are so many resolutions which the United States, United Nations Security Council, General Assembly, they have passed. But you and I, we wonder, how can we actually approach this, serious issue, which has been causing so much killings and, shahadats and destruction of properties, and every now and then we find it that, and we, the spectators, we just take it as such. Okay, how many people have died? All right, it keep on happening. Now, this is the non-serious attitude, which I would blame, I've used the word blame. I would blame the United Nations. What is it doing? Because the main purpose of the United Nations Security Council, where there are 5 permanent members, is for the peace and security of the world. What are they doing here, As far as Pakistan is concerned, whenever there is a voting, Pakistan will vote for, Palestine. There will be a very forceful, strong statement coming from Islamabad. We are with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. We want a solution, but what can we do? Now, as I said, that since the other 4 permanent members, besides the United States of America, they have delinked themselves from this Middle East issue because they have somehow decided that it will take time, a considerable period of time, when there will be a solution to Middle East crisis.
When you talk of considerable time, Ambassador Saab, what is in your mind? Because when you see the Israeli government being complicit in settler attacks, when you see the Israeli government being complicit in all the barbarities on the Palestinians, the ousting of the Palestinians from their residences where they have been living since decades, the occupation of those residents by the Israeli communities that are being settled there, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take another 5 decades, another 100 years before some kind of a solution comes?
No one knows. Full stop. Number 2, we had hopes when Netanyahu goes away, because Netanyahu has been a prime minister who would somehow be bent upon finding some kind of solution where Palestinians are suppressed. But somehow, even if, with the new prime minister, we are seeing that the policies are the same, the killings are the same, the suppression is the same, the human rights aspect, violation of human rights while, they are going on unabated. How long will it take? If you ask me, I can assure you that Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, etc., we have seen some kind of solution, some kind of, détente or some kind of lessening of problems in these areas. But as far as Kashmir is concerned, or the Palestinian issue are concerned, these are the two outstanding agenda item on the United Nations Security Council. There are political angles, there are diplomatic angles, and mostly there are economic angles. And on top of these angles, there is this thing which we called id and ego. This ego, you can see it from the United States point of view, particularly from Israel point of view and Indian point of view. If you look at these two issues, you will see that they just don't want to find a solution. It is not difficult. There have been research papers, there have been think tanks all over the world, particularly in Pakistan, in United States of America, in India, in all major European countries. Think tanks have proposed a number of proposals for the Palestinian issue, any solution. Any one solution which talks about two states, Israeli state and the Palestinian state. It is doable. The moment some kind of solution is, in the implementation stage, we hear that something has happened, some Palestinian has killed 2 Israelis, some 2 Israelis have killed 17 or 18 Palestinians. So to sum it up, I would say that the solution as such, which will cater for the needs of Israel and Palestinian both, and on top of it, the needs of the United States of America and its role in the Middle East. I don't see in the foreseeable future any solution, because these three parties, they have their independent approach towards this issue. They don't want to talk, so much so that the stage has come, they don't want to talk across the table. So when you don't give chance to diplomacy, then such, stray incidents will keep on happening. The point is that why doesn't the United States of America, the main actor in this? Today, if America says, okay, both of you sit down, this is the solution, and the United Nations Security Council, all P5 members come and they say, okay, this is it, this is what we have decided, I think Palestinians won't have any problem. But the funny thing which I tell you, the secret is, the moment United States of America agrees on this two-state solution, they have been saying it. Either way, they have been saying it. The moment they go towards the implementation aspect, you will see a great human cry from within the United States of America. All Jews will get together and they say, this cannot happen. This is my observation, and I can only pray for my Palestinian brothers and sisters, because they have been suppressed for decades. And mind you, for your viewers, that Pakistan is the only country after Palestine. Somehow, if you see, Pakistan starts with P, Palestine starts with P. In international conferences, in United Nations, we sit together. Somehow, we sit together, and Pakistan's statement would be the first one which would endorse the Palestinian official point of view. And it is going on still, even if, let me finish. Even if the UAE, for instance, has recognized Israel, even if we are hearing that perhaps Saudi Arabia will also recognize, Israel, and there are about more than 26 countries, Muslim countries, who have actually recognized Israel, meaning thereby that it's okay. It's okay. Israel is there, and whatever it is doing, it's okay. Pakistan is next to Palestine, the only country which stands by the side of Palestine and we will, I think, no government in Islamabad, no matter which political party is represented in Islam, on Kashmir and Palestine, I don't see any change in any government of Pakistan for many, many decades.
That is true. Ambassador Saab, now that I understand your perspective or point of view, as you've highlighted in quite detail as to what has been the reaction from the world body and what needs to be done and what hasn't been done, do you feel there is a certain duality as far as the reaction of world bodies to incidents in the world is concerned? When you look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict and how the world has come as one, especially the West and the European Union have come as one and are helping Ukraine. They could, come together as one and help Palestine. They could come as one and help in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the people there, for their just right to self-determination, for their just right for their own properties in Palestine, for example, and carve out this two-state solution. Just sit down and say, as you yourself said, that if the US wants, it can just say, you just sit down and let's implement this once and for all. But there is a deliberate, it seems as if it's deliberate delay as far as resolution of these two important issues are concerned. Do you feel there is a certain duality or a certain preference when it comes to resolving conflicts in the world?
Ever since, Umar, the establishment of the United Nations, the word double standards that you are referring to as duality, I have been hearing this for the last 45 years. In case of Ukraine, for instance, if you could draw a parallel between Ukraine, Palestinian issue and Kashmir, you will see that the powerful party in it, for instance, in case of Kashmir, it is India. In case of Palestine, it is Israel. In case of Ukraine, it is Russia. Whatever these powerful partners in that war or in that conflict, they would want, somehow I have seen that the United Nations would go by that. And to talk about the truth, justice, human rights, declaration of human rights, etc., and the respect of territorial integrity and sovereignty of other countries, to me, let me be very blunt and frank, these are jargons to be stated in any speech anywhere in the world. Can't we see that a whole country, for instance, Ukraine, is being invaded? This is a proper country, another country. Didn't we see invasion of Afghanistan? Didn't we see the result of politics in Libya? Didn't we see what happened to Iraq? Literally, practically invasion. What happened? What happens is that the powerful countries say, as the United States of America said in case of Afghanistan, we are very sorry. We could not have a political solution of Afghanistan. Now it is up to Afghanistan, whatever they want to do with their own countries and Taliban. In case of Iraq, President Bush said, we are very sorry. We thought that there would be WMDs in Iraq. We could not find any. We are very sorry. America, the P5 members, particularly America, Russia, they can get away with this sorry and apologies. Countries like Pakistan, they cannot. Look at, India, for instance. Didn't the world see how they invaded Pakistan's airspace? All three spheres, didn't they see a cruise missile called Brahmos accidentally being fired? Here they say, oh, Pakistan's nuclear program is, it is not safe. Whereas the IAEA report says it is very safe. There is a cruise missile. And if at all it was accidental, Umar, it is even more dangerous.
Of course. It shows a lack of responsibility as far as the nuclear arsenal of India is concerned, and all eyes should be on India, because there's also been the uranium incident that happened within India, and again all of this was hush-hushed. But Ambassador Sahab, the fact remains, as you yourself have pointed out, that come what may, until and unless the powers that be decide that they need to come to a resolution to this issue will remain as it is. It will continue to burn till such time that the important players in the world politics decide that enough is enough, that we need to come to some kind of a solution. I hope that really comes before it's way too late, and before there is no turning back to incidents such as Palestine and Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much, Ambassador Najam Saqib Saab, to have joined us, to have detailed all of these incidents that have been happening in Palestine, and referring that with other incidents occurring across the world, and of course how it is important for the important players in the world to play a more responsible role as far as resolution of these issues is concerned. Let's come to our last three stories very quickly. First is the Greece train crash. At least 36 people have been killed, dozens have been injured in this collision. It was a head-on crash between a passenger and cargo train that happened near Tempe, close to the central city of Larissa. The trains, this one was a passenger train that was traveling from Athens to the northern city of Thessaloniki, and a cargo train was on its way from Thessaloniki to Larissa. These collided head-on in the town of Tempe just before midnight on Tuesday. A lot of people were burnt beyond recognition. Most were young people. There has been an appeal for blood donors for all those who have been injured, and people are rather coming in to donate blood. Police and emergency crews have reached the wreckage as well. The station master in charge of the railway at Larissa has now been arrested as far as the reports are concerned. Greece's president says that we find ourselves in front of a senseless tragedy. Also, she has said she will cut short an official visit and return to Greece. A 3-day mourning period has also been announced there. Our wishes, our prayers go with our brethren in Greece, and we wish that all the injured come back and are nursed back to health at the earliest. Let's come to our next story, and that is the first ever digital census that has begun today all across Pakistan. It was earlier announced that before today, if you wanted, you could go to a certain website and even add your own details, and a code will be given to you that you could confirm with the personnel that will be coming to collect the information on the behalf of the government of Pakistan. Now, under the census, all the teams will be going from door to door, will be collecting data, will be digitizing all that data, so that all those who have been left out in the previous census are now going to be included. There is a lot of emphasis on inclusion, whether it be transgenders, whether it be the young people, whether it be all those who've been born since, and there are incidents in which there are a lot of people living in one single household, so that needs to be updated as well. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, India leads the world as far as cutting internet access for the 5th year in a row. This, I'm not saying, this is a report that is saying that internet advocacy watchdog Access Now, as reported by Reuters and so many other agencies, has reported this on Tuesday. The country has topped the list for the 5th consecutive year. Out of 187 internet shutdowns globally recorded by Access Now, 84 took place in India, including 49 in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We have been saying that, the main watchdogs have been saying that, let's see what the reaction will be from the world bodies. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segment stories that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.